Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Complex Like Wine, the podcast where we talk about complicated things and improve over time just like wine does. So I'm actually really excited for this episode because I have my first podcast collaboration going on. Today we have Myia and she has her own podcast, and I actually found her through Instagram, surprisingly enough. And I just like the conversations that she was having on her platform. So I hit her up and I was like, hey, do you want to collaborate and be in each other's podcast? And so gracious that she agreed to it. So, hi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, like she said, my name is Myia, and I have a platform as well called Luxury of Life. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Like she said as well, she reached out to me on Instagram, and I was ready, I was down to join and have this great conversation. My platform is also about mental health and self-help as well, and different aspects of life. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm so excited for this. So I'll let you kind of just talk more about your platform, because today we wanted to talk about imposter syndrome, sense of self. And so at the beginning I wanted to touch on kind of, the imposter syndrome that comes out with, creating your own project, especially putting it out there for everybody to hear and see, especially on things that are very vulnerable and personal. So, I kind of wanted you to talk about your platform and how you got into it, what inspired you, and then kind of just explain a little bit of the accomplishments you've had from it, maybe some of the obstacles or little bumps in the road that you have faced with it as well, especially when it comes to like your mental state with that. So I'll let you take it away.
Okay. So it's been about 2 years since I've had my platform, and it started during the summer of 2021, 2 years from ago, summer of 2021. And I was just like, I want to do something. Like I feel like I have a voice that needs to be heard. I am very much in psychology and mental health. Because that's my degree that I'm going in with. So I was just like, I know I can talk. I know I'm pretty smart. Like I want to see what people say and want to hear from me. So when I started, I was like, what can I do to, get this started? What can I do? And I looked up podcasting, and I don't know if y'all know or you know Zara about Pod Sound School. I had found about them in their platform and started watching YouTube videos and getting into it. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do this. They seem really professional. And then one of the videos that I watched was about how you can do it on a budget, because I didn't have a whole lot of money. Still don't have a whole lot of money working with what I have now. But they were like, you can do it and don't stop yourself. Like just try. Because what are people gonna do? Either they like it or they don't like it. So I did it. I bought me a little microphone. I got my name together. What do I want to call this platform? What do I want to talk about? And I wanted to be a platform for everyone to listen to. Everybody can come to my platform and get something out of it. Now, mind you, once again, I was like, okay, but what if people don't want to listen? Or what if I'm not good enough? Or what I have to say is not wise in some form or format. And I even had at one point my parents, they were like, "What are you doing? Like, this doesn't look like it's gonna be a great idea. She might be going through a phase." And I was just like, wait, just give me a second and wait. And I made my first ever episode. And before I even put it out, I let my parents listen to it. And I was just like, listen to it and see what I have to say. And then I also gave it to a few other family members and friends that I had at that time. And I was just like, what do you guys think? Like, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to become. And the first episode ever made my mom cry. And I was just like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting you to cry. She was like, you need to continue what you're doing. Like, you're really good at this. You have something out there for people to listen to. So I was listening to my mom and the people out there, but in the inside, I was just fighting like, I'm scared. Like, I don't know what to get from this. I don't know if people are gonna listen. I don't want to look at listeners, maybe one or two people are listening to me. Like, I don't like that. I want this to be big. I want this to be something. But in order to do that, I have to put in the work, but also was like, is it enough work? So I fought for about 2 years and still continuing to fight now with making video content as well for my podcast, trying to make sure that, hey, it doesn't have to be perfect. You are enough and people are listening. People are taking the time to say, hey, this is really good. You need to keep doing what you're doing. And I still battle with that to this day of going back and forth and having like a moment where I'm just like, okay, maybe I'll take a break this week. People probably don't want to hear what I have to say. And I have to continue to fight through that. So that was my little process of where I started and here I am now. I still struggle with it, but I still push on to continue to have that consistency because I know it is enough. Like it will be enough. And I can see it in the results as well.
Some context is sharing with my imposter syndrome. So I've always been a creative. I got my degree in film. So I have always been very familiar with putting out content or creating something and having to have in the back of my head of dealing with imposter syndrome of like, what if it's not good enough? What if people don't like it? What if people don't want to listen or see it? X, Y, and Z, something. And when I started the podcast, kind of to share with you some context, I started in 2021 during, like, in the midst of the pandemic, because I finally started taking my mental health seriously, and I was kind of stepping away from film specifically. But I knew I wanted to still do some type of production and create something. So, like, let me create a platform where at least I can help somebody. And putting the first episode out there, I was terrified because I'm like, okay, once I start this, there's no going back. And even now, reviving this podcast for season 2, so I was petrified because I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to be more intentional, like, creating some Instagram page. All right. You're really seeing the amount of followers that people are like, like it's out there for people to know and see. And just, investing the time, investing the money, everything that goes into podcasting, and just hoping that, okay, hopes at least one person gets something out of each episode. And the imposter syndrome can be super scary because, especially with like a topic or a platform like ours, it's such a vulnerable personal thing.
Yeah.
We're talking about our daily experience, our life, our mental health for people just to listen, and it's out there for the internet. So it's kind of scary, but kind of want to get into with you. So, all right, so you already put your first episode. How has it been since then? And now that you're like in multiple your other seasons, how has it been like still putting content out and kind of dealing with that?
I feel like once I got to the point where consistency is key, no matter what, put something out there. Like, do not stop yourself from posting, clicking submit. Do not stop yourself from that point. And keeping that in mind, no matter how I feel, I know sometimes I'm just like not up to recording. I'm like, but people can tell like I'm not feeling well. But that's a part of our platform. Supposed to be vulnerable and allowing others to see us for who we are so they can learn and we can learn together. So from then and now, I feel like I have gotten to a way better point of being consistent and knowing that just because I'm not perfect with what I have, it is enough for people. And even my worst point on point episodes that I think are the worst, I've gotten the best results from. So I was just like, wow, like just keep going, keep pushing, keep moving. And now with the growth of what I want to push for more video content as well because I felt like I was getting comfortable with just talking with myself in my room with the mic. And I'm like, I want people to know who I am. I want to push for it, start putting my face out there as well. And it also made me feel like I'm being more serious about what I want to do. The fact that I'm putting my name out there, the fact that I'm showing my face to people as well. So that's where I am with that from then and now.
Yeah, it definitely puts a different level when you start filming yourself talk. Because, I mean, you can record yourself talking. All right, it's fine. But once your face is out there on the internet to see, it's definitely It's definitely a different level. And I started filming my podcast episodes since the very first one because, as a filmmaker, it was just kind of like in, innately, I already knew I wanted to do that. But it's, it's even now, some part of me still gets kind of weirded out when I have friends or friends of friends or even strangers show me like, oh, I'm watching you talk right now. I'm like, people actually want to listen and watch me talk. I'm like, okay, it's kind of weird, but the whole imposter syndrome thing, you just kind of have to. It's like the angel and devil on your shoulders. Like the devil, you just kind of gotta flick it off and be like, you know what? Thank you, but bye. Like, we're done with you. Let's start moving forward and all that. Um, how else has imposter syndrome affected in your life? Because I know you're in school right now, so I'm sure on some level, for anybody that's listening, like we can all relate when it comes to school, and imposter syndrome can be very present sometimes.
Like, college is just nothing can prepare you for college. I don't like high school, middle school. I don't like all of that is nothing compared to what college is. And I thought I went into it, oh, I'm going to be fine. I had a 3.5 GPA going into college. Oh, I got smacked. And the first couple of classes I took, I was just like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Like, I started learning that it's hard for people to complete college sometimes. And now as a fourth year student, I'm about to graduate. I can see why. Like it's a lot of stress and having that mindset, oh, am I enough? Can I do it? Every single semester with different classes, with different professors, with different people, every day, like of that certain time of the day, especially let's say you had a class at 9 o'clock in the morning, like that's rough. That is hard. And so, am I enough is always the question that I have to say, yes, I am enough. I can do this. I will earn this degree because I deserve it. And it's worth my time and my effort. So I just have to keep, like I said, keep pushing forward with that and having people on my side and um, having that support system from my family and my friends as well, just to get through it. Not only am I graduating with my bachelor's, I decided to go for my master's as well. So it's just like, okay, well, I just need to keep going. I know I can do it. I know I can get done. If I got this far, I know I can get through it go even further. Um, and another thing, if you guys are spiritual, I'm a Christian, and I just want to say that God put me in this place to have me and give me this purpose in life. Like I feel like he got my back as well as my family and my friends and stuff like that. So I have to remember that and also know like where I am and where I'm standing. Like people, it's hard for people to even get to this point. And I completely understand y'all, the school dropouts, college dropouts, it's understandable. Like I understand. Um, because it's hard. And so with that, yeah, that's another part of my imposter syndrome as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really big factor with that. And another point of view would be with my relationship as well. I am in a relationship and just going every day through like, okay, does he still like me? I don't know. I don't even like myself right now. Am I enough for him? I don't know. Does he like that question always pops in my head. And that's why you gotta have a good partner to always come back and tell you you're just fine. Don't worry about it. I would not be here if you weren't. Like it's just little things that he does to um I don't even have to question it at this point. And those little just moments in your back of your head, you're just like, okay, I'm good. I know I'm good. I know I'm enough. So little stuff like that, and what I'm going through personally in my life.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up your relationship because I was going to ask you. Okay, so we touched on imposter syndrome within school, which can kind of translate into your career, but how do you deal with that when it comes to your family or your friendships or your romantic relationships? Like how do you get to navigate dealing with imposter syndrome with that. For me, the romantic for sure, like, oh, am I enough? Am I a good enough girlfriend? If am I what they want? If I'm like good enough for what their needs are, or even my friends sometimes where, okay, am I being a good enough friend? Am I doing enough for them? And specifically with my family, especially my dad, I'm always in the back of my head. I'm like, am I a good enough daughter? Am I making him proud enough? If I'm doing enough that I need to, like, am I doing what I need to do? And it over time it can start weighing on you. And I think with imposter syndrome, it's very, at least for me personally, it's very gradual. Like it starts layering and layering unto the point where it's just too much and you have a meltdown or an episode, something. How would you say that has affected you when it comes to like family or friends?
So, like you said, for me as well, it builds. Gradually, little things will happen. I'm just like, okay, it's whatever. I'll just sweep it under the rug. I'll just move on, and then little more things happen. It just starts to build, and then I'm getting to a point where I'm just like, how did this happen? How did I get here and where I am right now? And that's where you have to learn like, hey, it's either it's not okay in that moment. You need to fix it or have that conversation in that moment. Don't let it lay on you or just go to bed thinking about that type of stuff. Talk about it. And I've had to learn how to do that and express myself more often to people when I'm having and when I'm feeling like I'm not enough or some things they have said hurt my feelings and made me feel like I wasn't enough. So when it comes to that, I have to make sure I express myself more and not allow it to build up because that has happened multiple occasions in my life where I just allow it to build up because I just couldn't speak up or I just couldn't say, hey, like that really hurt my feelings and just let it be, let have that person react. Um, but yeah, I would say those are like major things when it comes to my aspect, the aspect in my life with friends and family.
All right, so let's kind of dive into sense of self. So, what does that mean? Especially in our 20s, it's a very impactful time in our life because we're trying to find a sense of self, especially during like your college years. It can be really hard.
Yeah.
And I think even post college, I kind of had a identity crisis of like, what do I want to do? Especially after graduating with my degree, I realized I don't want to specifically do film anymore just because it doesn't fulfill me like I thought it would and where I'm at right now. And, trying to now do with this podcast and wanting to switch my master's to psychology and trying to figure out, like, okay, who am I? I don't, trying to like process that. So, if you're willing, I would love to kind of hear your experience with discovering sense of self.
So when I first started college, I wasn't even going into college for a psych degree. I was going for a musical theater degree. I wanted to be a part of that lifestyle. I wanted it. I loved singing, I loved dancing, and I had did it all through my high school life. And it was just like when I got to school and didn't get accepted, I was put on a wait list. I was like, well, what am I going to do now? And I really had to figure that out fast because the school had accepted me, but they were like, you just can't do musical theater. You can do something else. So when they asked me that question, I sat down, was just like, okay, so where do I want to see myself? Like, where do I see myself in the future? How can I get to where I want to be, the type of person I want to be in my life? And psychology was the main thing that stood out for me. And like through that whole process, I really had to just learn who am I? Get to know myself more. And now from then and from now, I have learned to just, take some time for myself, understand my emotions, understand my wants and my needs, and take like sometimes take myself out on a date, establish some new hobbies, understand like different things that I enjoy and what I don't enjoy, I have really taken the time to get to know myself better to establish a better sense of myself. And there's like little qualities and little perks that I know I have as a person and I was given as a person. And I've learned to use those things, those gifts and those perks that I have. So that's another way of like establishing a better self-sense in my view, and getting to know like what are you good at. I'm very creative, I'm hands-on, I use that stuff in what I do, and it just makes me enjoy life a little bit better, and understand myself better as well.
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, that was like the good a good that's a part of where I am when establishing myself.
Mm-hmm. I'm It made me happy to hear that you said you take yourself on your own dates. I have always had anxiety around that. Especially this year being single, I have been trying to be more intentional about, just if I want to do something and there's no one there to do it with, it's fine. I'm going to do it myself. So it made me really happy to hear that you already do that, because I think that's really important. Because part of, I think, with establishing a sense of self is being comfortable with yourself and just liking your own company. Because I think once you get to a place where you're confident and comfortable with yourself, whatever aspects of insecurity, of needing approval, like gratification, whatever other things might come into, especially like your social life, those start to kind of disappear or not be as prevalent. And then you're just more authentically yourself. And then that ends up gravitating and drawing in the people that are genuinely about you. And it just kind of weeds out the people that are meant to be in your space and not people that are around because they're seeing some type of facade.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Like, as also going through this process, you'll know who your real friends are, like at the end of the day. And when you start becoming yourself, you'll find yourself with different people and people that genuinely like you for who you are and also would add on to that. And now like in my life, I have friends that we work off of each other, we build off each other, we understand our different gifts and aspects that we have of ourselves, and we utilize that. Like it's perfectly fine knowing how to work with each other and understand each other in that matter. And it's great when you find those types of people and then you have long lasting relationships to have for the rest of your life until you get old. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And um with the dates, I recently just started, probably, I would say no more than a year. It's like been a year that I've actually started doing that and going out more often. I do it big time with studying and stuff. I find a cafe or a new place to try some type of food just to sit and do homework and stuff. And I get to know people and like I talk to people sometimes and see how they like, how do you like this place? Oh, different things like that. So the dating yourself has been very interesting. Even though I feel like I'm still too new to this. So it's definitely something worth to try and definitely find places you like and try to be creative with it as well.
Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to hear more about the first time you took yourself on a date. Like, well, how was that process? Because the first time I attempted to do that was for Valentine's Day. And then I had a friend that ended up joining me Valentine's night to a comedy show. So it wasn't really like a self alone date type of thing. But that was the first time I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take myself out and see what happens. So I kind of want to hear more about your experience with like your like self date and how going into that.
Okay, so it was just a spontaneous moment. It was spontaneous because I had tried to make plans with some friends of mine and they just weren't down to go. And I was just like, oh man, like I want to go. Like I really want to go. So the first thing I did, when I was, this is currently when I was studying in school for that semester. So I literally left my place and I just walked. I knew there was this place, a cafe that I wanted to try and this new thrift store that I wanted to go see. So I said, you know what? I'm not gonna even drive. It's right down the street. I'm gonna just take myself. I'm not gonna take nobody. No one's gonna know where I'm at. Let's just go. So I pick myself up and I leave and I'm just walking. I'm like, okay, it's all right. I'm walking by myself, see different people, say hi. And it was not like the silence and having that time to myself was really reflecting and really just it was a great time. Like I enjoyed having that time to think to myself and like think about what I don't know how to put it. How to say this? It was okay. It was just enjoying the time to myself. I didn't have to think about anybody. I didn't have to worry about anybody else. It was just me time. And that me time is so, so important to have when you are establishing and grounding yourself where you are in that moment. It gives you time to think about how you're feeling and where you're at. And like I said, I was just going to a thrift store and a cafe. And I took that time to just enjoy myself and really think about where I am at the same time. Like it was really a really nice moment for me. And it also gave me time to um, build my social battery back up as well because my social battery will be down to none if I keep pushing myself to be around others and wanting to be social and networking with other people. So it also gave me time to re-energize and get myself back to a point where I'm stable and I feel like I'm good with myself as well.
I've noticed that for myself as well, where if I just take the time to just really do something for me, my whether it's my social battery or my mental health or just my mood in general, it just elevates a little bit, at least just a little bit, where I just feel refreshed. I feel more grounded with myself, and I just more connected with who I am and what I like. And I think especially when you're in school, you're in the work grind or on the social butterfly grind, whatever it is, if you're just constantly nonstop and you don't check in with yourself, it can get really easy to kind of get lost and disconnected with yourself. You just kind of end up not realizing what actually do I like? What actually makes me happy? Who are the people that make me happy? And you need a moment to kind of check back and sit in with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And it also allows you to be like more appreciative of who you are as a person and just the things that are around you. Like you got the beautiful birds chirping the trees. Like you start noticing things that you did not notice while you were always constantly doing something or working on something or being with people. Like you start to notice things that you wouldn't have noticed if you were by yourself. So it's so so important to me like to have that time in that quiet time to myself um to yeah to just have.
What are, so for people listening, what are some ways that you would suggest people can start implementing that? Whether, it's the imposter syndrome, the sense of self, what are some ways that people can start like practicing ways to combat that, of whether they're having the fear of, am I good enough, am I worthy, or having like a identity crisis and just kind of getting lost in who they are. What are some ways that you would suggest that people can start fixing, not fixing, but helping that?
Helping that, I would say first off, as a like people in their 20s, let's say that, or people a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older that might be having identity crisis, but generally for that population, it's so it's okay to not know sometimes. Like don't push yourself to always figure out what is the next move? Sometimes the next move comes to you and you're like, okay, well, why was I so hooked up on what I need to do next? Or, oh, I can't figure out what I want my degree to be when you go into school, or I can't figure out the next move with this person supposed to be. Sometimes just allow things to happen. And I have learned how to, be patient with stuff like that. Sometimes I can't control everything that I do. I just have to be patient and allow things to just work, because it will work out. No matter what you're going through, whenever what you're struggling with, things will always work out, even if it's might be years, it might be a day. It will work itself out, with you working or with you talking to somebody. It will work itself out. So allow life to be life sometimes. I know that can be hard, just sitting and be waiting and patiently just wondering what's going to happen, but sometimes that's like the best things you could do for yourself. And I know like some practices I've done in my life, I've put sticky notes or reminders on my mirror, or I'll set a reminder on my phone, or I'll put quotes up. I have app specifically on my tablet, a little widget that comes up with expressive quotes that I can read and see it and read it and be like, okay, I know that that's what I have. I know currently I have an encouragement book for different filled with different Bible verses to encourage me if I'm feeling down or I need a little pick me up, little things to encourage you to keep pushing in your life and know that you are enough and you're not alone as well. Um, let's see. I know also writing and journaling about your emotions and figuring out where you are in that present time is also important when it comes to imposter syndrome and just establishing a sense of self. And definitely, like we said, like we've talked about, take yourself out on a date or do something for you and express yourself in the way that you know that you're good at. I know I currently just got into painting. I didn't know I was like decently good at it. I've never painted before. And I was decently good at painting, and people are like, "Oh, that's pretty good." Like, and I didn't know that until I took myself out to do it, and I enjoyed it. And now I have another practice to put in to help me build on my own encouragement to encourage myself when I'm feeling low, and just another way to share and express myself with other people from myself. So
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything else in regards to that, or maybe a different topic that you would like to share?
I do want to say, with understanding, knowing that you are enough, sometimes we ask the question, are we enough, right? And it's hard to understand that sometimes you aren't enough. And when you ask that question, are you enough? Am I enough? Can I keep doing this? Sometimes you aren't enough. And I have to face that truth sometimes in my life and just know like that comes with being perfect or trying to be perfect all the time for someone when you don't have to, or you just can't be perfect. Like being perfect to me is impossible. So asking that question, are you enough? And then saying, no, sometimes I'm not enough. That's okay as well. Because I know I've had a couple of people, especially my boyfriend, we've had to talk about being perfectionism and being perfect. And I tell him all the time, I was like, I don't need you to be perfect for me. I like you for who you are. And many people struggle with that through their work or through school or through their personal life as well. And sometimes you just can't be enough. But where you are right now, if people don't see that as quote unquote enough for them, then they don't need to be in your life then. Or you might have to find someone who sees you where you are and where you're at. Um, I think that's a really good aspect to imposter syndrome as well. And just knowing that sometimes it's just you're not enough, and that's okay.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's true. Sometimes like you earn enough, and that might be really hard for people listening to hear, but I I view it as like, okay, it's a them not me type of situation. Like sometimes you're not somebody's cup of tea, or you might not be the right role for the right person for this specific job or this and that, and that's okay because we're human. We can't do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to fill all the boxes for everything. That and if you can do that, then you must be like Superman or something, like some type of like anomaly, because that's just part of the human experience. But I'm really glad that you brought that up because it's part of it is just being okay with that. And once you are able to kind of drop the need to, whether it's people pleasing, being enough, whatever kind of some type of maybe insecurity might be connected to that, once you're able to kind of just like take that off your load and be content with, you don't have to fill everybody's boxes or be their cup of tea. You take that pressure off and you can just, again, be more authentically yourself. And that is okay.
Yeah, completely okay. I have had to learn that as well. Especially with college. I got my first C. I got my first C ever in college, and I was just like, that's wow. Like that took me out. I cried over it. I was just like, no, I can't do this. And I was just like, hey, you had a stressful semester, even though it's a C, even though it could have been a B or an A, you still passed. I was like, you still made it. It's not going to be perfect. Um, and everything's going to be okay. Like that C is not going to change my life. Like it's not going to make the world turn even faster. Like it wasn't that serious to begin with. And so I had to establish like what are those serious things that I need to, focus and worry about, and what are those things like, hey, I'm going to be okay at the end of the day. Like it's all right that I was not perfect in this moment.
Yeah, no, it's glad that you have that realization now, because some people go their whole life without it, and that can be very draining and exhausting. So I'm glad that you have that realization. Yeah. Well, I think we touched on what we wanted to talk on. You brought up really good points. So thank you for being on the podcast.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, I'm going to link all of her platforms and stuff. Do you want to mention your platforms or where they can follow you?
Yeah, so I have an Instagram and a YouTube currently. Both are called Luxury of Life. Oh, the Instagram specifically is underscore luxury of life dot um underscore. And you guys can find me on Instagram or also follow me on my personal page is connected to my platform as well. You guys can follow me on both. You'll see me posting and stuff on there as well. And my YouTube is also the same. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
I'll be sure to link her platforms and her tags and the caption, whatever platform you're listening on, that way you can easily access her. But yeah, no, thanks guys for tuning in to another episode. It was great to have Myia on, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, bye.
Bye.